Hey everybody, what's going on? Mark here with an intro for you. So this week's episode, the Bella Horizonte encounter, was pulled from our Patreon feed over at patreon.com/kryptonautpodcast. We recorded it, I want to say it was around May, maybe the first couple weeks in May, when we were doing our COVID lockdown pods, recording remotely. But it was a good time. It's a fun little story. We figured it'd be a perfect opportunity to release it to the public, to give you guys a little taste of what's happening over there on Patreon. So we hope you enjoy that. Also, too, hellerspace.com. The Hellerspace 2020 election t-shirts are going offline on Tuesday, Election Day, which is tomorrow. So if you want to grab yourself one of those T-shirts or stickers or mugs or pins, be sure to grab that because they will be offline. And thank you to everybody who went and bought one and sent us pictures of themselves voting with it. That is super dope. It's awesome to see that. So yeah, thank y'all for your purchases. We appreciate it. And without further ado, Christopher Q. That creepy music. Welcome to the Kryptonaut Podcast, Patreon edition. I am Mark Storrs, and with me as always is
Crass
and
Rob Morphy.
Before we began recording this amazing Patreon episode, and thank you to, well, I hope it's amazing. It might not
I know,
be.
that's
We'll
pretty
see.
assumptive, you know.
Yeah.
It could be just above par if we're lucky.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see. If the jacking ape was any indication of where we're going, hopefully this is a step up or maybe even a step down. Thank you all for your contributions. We appreciate it so very much. You guys mean a lot to us. We're glad that you support us. It's just it's mind blowing. We get the messages and all this shit on the Patreon feed there, and it's so cool. So thank you guys.
It's stupid. I'm half convinced you're talking to another pod. We certainly don't deserve those accolades.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the support. Before we began recording this episode, Christopher was telling us about some updates from his backyard. Unusual fauna. Yeah. So Chris,
things are getting weird in your backyard. Let's fucking hear about this. I'm fucking fascinated.
Yeah, it's a little. Definitely the birds. I've seen birds I've never seen before, and I've been living in this apartment for like 5 years.
Right.
I don't know, some fucking crazy finches. Possibly a warbler. I don't fucking know. I don't know birds.
But I like that you at least sort of know the names. I'm like, yeah, the blue one, the red one, the little tiny one, the shit's on me. Like that's all I got.
No, I've definitely seen those. I've seen a pile of different groundhogs that I haven't seen in years, and all of a sudden they're like coming out like 3 or 4 at a time. Usually it's like 1, maybe 2 at most.
Really?
But like I saw like 4 at the same time. So they're like, we're gonna run in packs, maybe. I don't know. To do something, I don't know. There's a mission, hog. Maybe. The deer are getting a little extra frolicky. I saw like a fucking like a battle a la Beat It, fucking back here.
Oh my
like
god!
A deer battle.
Snapping fingers like a post West Side Story mid '80s Beat It battle amongst fawn and doe.
Dude, I've never seen a deer battle, but this was clearly a battle of dominance. For fucking, they weren't playing. I've seen deer play. This was not it. So that was fucking weird. And they're getting a little, I don't know.
For those that don't know, Chris, too, his backyard is literally, and I don't think I'm overstating to say this, one of the most esoteric portions of our small town. It is, granted, it's a really random train yard, so you get like access from all over the nation of weird shit, but it's removed. But even beyond that is the legendary quarry. There's Bull Point, of course. And there's other places, but I mean, there's just lots of weird, isolated hunks of nothing that we've all visited maybe in our misspent youth to, get drunk at or make out at or whatever we've been lucky enough to do, but really haven't spent a lot of time in. So I can't help but think when you start telling me some new warblers and some fucking goatee deer and whatnot are showing up in your backyard, that maybe this is how a new Mel's hole shows up. Maybe they're not just there since a time immemorial. Maybe sometimes like a black hole, the earth starts falling away, or the quarry starts parting and the rock starts falling a little deeper and the lines become more vertical. I know I'm going out on a limb with this, but I can't help it because there's something creepy as fuck. Like your backyard itself is fine, but beyond the fence where the wood immediately begins and is instantly dense, like there's no graduation to forest, and then the train lines and then the quarries. It is fucking odd. It is uncomfortable. I've walked back there a bunch of times, especially when I was younger, and it's just like, I won't say icky, but there's definitely something unusual about this place.
Well, I was going to attribute it more to like the corona and the fact that like there's not a lot of activity. Even the the trains aren't moving as much as they normally are. I've just noticed just around this whole area,
the reclamation of wildlife everywhere, like just coming out of their fucking holes and saying, fuck it, this is our world again.
Are a little bit more active than I've seen them.
So I went too far with the Mel's hole. You're saying I took the football, ran into the pit, fell, broke both my legs, and I'm screaming for help saying, it's a Mel's hole!
I said that it was going to be an amazing episode, so you're just following suit with me, I guess.
Just wild predictions going out on the limb.
Wild predictions.
Yeah, I mean, the trains could have been bringing a Mel's hole in from somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I mean...
Maybe there's a Mel's hole at, not Area 51, but where's the place Bob Lazar worked? Way out there. In the fucking the dune.
Shit! You had to ask
me. How am I drawing a blank?
We're supposed to be pros or something like that.
All right. Yes.
Not sure.
So maybe occasionally you take a portion of a hole, like the one that's in Nevada or like the one that's in Washington, and you take it somewhere else, and that's how you seed a new hole. It takes a portion of a hole to start another hole because you can't start them automatically, but you can seed a new hole. And maybe once every like 75 years, they seed a new hole to see if you can get more bulletproof parakeets and more fucking tumor seals and madness. And maybe behind Chris's house, that's what's happening as we speak.
So are you drinking Boilermakers again?
I'm drinking a lot of whiskey. I'm drinking coffee mugs full of whiskey. Checking. Well, bourbon whiskey, I guess. And cool. And Genesee beer. So
good.
It's not a Boilermaker per se, but am I mixing the two? Yes. But I wouldn't accredit that with this wild speculation. I would say that is just me being me.
Let's continue with this amazing episode of the Kryptonaut podcast.
Now you're just being sarcastic about it. You went from being a true believer to just being snide as shit.
Yeah, I did. All right. So this week we were talking about the Bella Horizonte encounter. This is kind of a famous one. It's
super
a little bit
famous.
Of a little bit of a short one, kind of famous. But yeah, you know what? We figured this can be perfect for our Patreon people. And this is just a little bit of the taste of what you get in the old Patron. So let's get started with in one of the most famous close encounter cases to come from South America. 3 boys doing chores in the backyard claim to have made first contact with a group of bizarre cycloptic beings who almost certainly hailed from another world. Ooh,
couldn't have said it better.
Beings, nice.
They are cycloptic,
right, man.
Super tall too, orange.
Yeah,
I'm spoiler alerting here.
There is some art that we're going to try to post along with this.
There's a ton of art. This is one of the best
really cool.
Represented. Not only is there some black and white illustrations, but there's actually, I think, excerpts from. They did great comic book adaptations of Close Encounters of the Third Kind in South America. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to use any number of that. Beautiful drawing. It's almost why I didn't bother to draw it myself. These motherfuckers nailed it decades before.
Nice. All right, man. Let's talk about some fucking crazy shit here.
Let's go home to South America, where we all know deep in our paranormal hearts is where we want to be.
Totally.
Surrounded by lush mountains, Belo Horizonte is the densely populated capital city of the southeastern Brazilian state of Minas Gerais. Best known for housing the Brazilian Football Museum within the vast walls of the Mineirão Stadium, Belo Horizonte can also lay claim to hosting one of the most unique, ostensibly extraterrestrial encounters on the books. On August 28th, 1963, 7-year-old Jose Marcos Gomes Vidal, God bless you and your 8 names, made his way through the labyrinth of Belo Horizonte's impoverished Sagrada Familia neighborhood in order to visit his friend, 12-year-old Fernando Eustoque Gualberto, and his 7-year-old brother, Ronaldo. As the boys played in the swiftly diminishing sunlight, they had no idea that before the night's end, their young lives would be forever changed. As the sun, yeah, I know. It's like, let's make the sounds. Yes. Oh, could it be?
Oh no, forever.
Who's gonna go Jabba, and then who's gonna go fucking? What's that little fucking monster on his tail that was a dick?
Salacious Crumb.
Thank you, Salacious Crumb.
I can't do a Salacious Crumb.
Voracious Crumb.
Oh my God.
Man.
Voracious Numb. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, Jose was invited in for dinner with the Gualberto family. After eating their fill, the boys were sent into the backyard in order to rinse the coffee strainer in a metal gasoline barrel that had been converted into a water tank. That's called frugality. I admire that.
Geez.
The barrel was so steep that Jose had to extend his arms and lean over the edge of the container just to get the water. Ronaldo loitered at the side of the house while Fernando walked over to help the undersized Jose scoop the water into the bottle. That was when, and you know what? First off, Ronaldo, man, do your part. Help the kid fucking balance. You don't have to fucking slouch away from any responsibility. I'm not trying to judge Ronaldo, but come on. That was when the older boy's eyes were caught by a strange, soft glow emanating from about 25 feet away, just above an avocado tree. As soon as his eyes adjusted, the astonished Fernando was shocked to see a structure behind the glow. It was a spherical object occupying 13 feet in diameter, made of interlocking vertical and horizontal arcing lines, covered in what looked to be a semi-transparent bubble. So basically, we've got a globe here made of interlocking metal going longitudinally and latitudinally, and some sort of clear shell around it, just helping.
So longitudinally speaking,
I know longitude and latitudinally. Thank you.
Longitudinal.
So it's just like a spherical ball, like a hamster ball. Basically.
Did I mention bourbon? Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
So yes, it's a spherical erector set ball with a hamster plastic around it.
Oh, hamster in the wheel.
The top.
Dude. Inside joke, the hamster and the wheel. Continue, goddammit.
I shall. The top of the orbicular object had 3 large antennas sticking out of its apex. The center one was the smallest and went straight up, while the outer 2 angled in opposite directions, 45-degree angles, in fact, and terminated in small circular end caps. But as strange as this structured globe clearly was, it would be the bizarre beings that could be seen piloting the vehicle that would forever make their mark on ufology. Sitting single file on one-legged seats, but just like a bar stool, were 4 humanoid entities clad in form-fitting one-piece suits, which had raised ridges across their torsos, arms, and thighs, and triangular crests fixed in their chests. So the raised ridges, just like weird sci-fi, like think of mid-60s sci-fi astronaut suits around the chest, around their arms, around their thighs. That's what you basically get with an old school Iron Man triangle, like mid-80s Iron Man triangle on the chest.
Right. So they've got like uniforms basically.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
The ensemble came complete with dark knee-high boots and transparent spherical helmets that encased the creature's inhuman, ruddy orange heads. 3 of which were bald, and 1 of which had fine blonde hair that was pulled back into, I must say, a stylish ponytail. The boys would later identify this individual as being female due to the fact that she was curvier and bore breasts. It's a simple assumption, but it's a solid one. made by 3 young boys. Listen, if we can, Patterson Gimlin can be a girl. Let these kids have this. She's got a ponytail, boobs. By their standards, it's a girl.
By their,
I mean,
okay, yeah,
yeah, but if you see, but generally speaking, if you see, a ponytail and some breasts, you're gonna be like, traits of a female. Like it's not that
for us,
far,
right?
For us, well,
Yeah,
I mean,
for
I
humans.
think
Well, Earth.
Right.
He's talking
well,
about Earth folk. He's not talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Who knows what these things identify as male, female, or whatnot?
Okay, cool. Whatever floats your boat. Dope. I'm down. Their fucking outfits sound rocking.
Yeah. Oh no, they're fucking like old school as shit.
Standard. Yeah, that is standard ops spaceman suit.
Like pre-gray, back when aliens were fucking awesome, I might add. Fucking prime time extraterrestrial shit. But as striking as orange skin and suit straight out of a Flash Gordon serial might have been, far and away the most distinguishing characteristic seen on these creatures was the single eye they each had in the center of their forehead. Below that was a wide mouth with no indication of a nose or nasal cavities whatsoever. So bright orange or ruddy orange. Fucking one giant eye, which would probably occupy, I mean, it's a big eye. Well, I don't know. It's a big eye. It's a decent sized eye that would occupy, I guess, the center of your face, and then just a little typical slit mouth. By this point, the stunned Fernando stood marveling at the sight before him. He would later recall that the male sitting at the head of the line, apparently the pilot, was perched in front of a device that appeared to be a control panel complete with a monitor and various levers, but the details were too far away to make out clearly. Just when it seemed as if this scene couldn't possibly get any weirder, 2 brilliant rays of yellow light suddenly burst forth from the craft, landing not far from the boy's feet. A moment later, one of the male cyclopses, I think that's how you say it, I really don't know how to properly do that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Began to descend to the earth between the beams as if it were some kind of radiant escalator. So I imagine he's holding the beams like 2 railings and just like coasting down slow,
I don't
like
know.
at a mall,
Yeah.
ending up down at the kid level, but who knows?
Maybe.
Once his boots hit the ground, the entity began to walk toward Jose, who was still struggling to collect the water, totally oblivious to the interstellar encounter unfolding around him. That fucking kid is going to clean out that coffee filter. Bless his heart. Give him a job. Jose's going to fucking do it. Terrified by what this thing might do to his friend, the courageous Fernando lunged forward and tackled the smaller boy, sending them both sprawling away from the encroaching creature. Hearing the commotion, here he comes. Ronaldo emerged from his hiding spot, and now all 3 boys faced this over 7 foot tall being. Fernando, doing his best to protect the younger boys, put himself between Ronaldo, Jose, and the ginger-skinned Cyclops, prepared for the worst.
Oh shit, it's a space fight.
Rumble.
Space fight, space rumble. But instead of continuing its forward progress, the creature halted and decided to take a different tact. To that end, he began moving his head and making unfamiliar hand gestures in what was an apparent effort to communicate with the uncomprehending earthlings. When that didn't work, the creature began uttering bizarre sounds quite unlike anything the boys had ever heard before. So it's doing its best. This proved just as futile as the gestures had in getting his point across. Evidently realizing he was getting nowhere, the Cyclops turned around and stared back at the UFO as if calling down a return beam. Sensing his opportunity to strike, the decidedly unsportsmanlike Fernando reached down, snatched a brick off the ground, we know where this is going, and reared back, taking aim at the glass-like bubble surrounding the visitor's head.
Hey, you know what, dude? Size comparison wise, this is a kid to a giant.
I agree.
I feel like
Dude, if you have a time to strike, you're like, I'm going to go for its fucking head.
She's saying,
Yeah, but
even though this
what's
thing
it
has done
doing?
nothing aggressive.
That's right. It's not doing
at
anything.
all.
The kid must have thought so.
Well, the
Why
kid
else
is
would he
Not
do it?
sure that's
protective.
an argument.
Look, I'm with the kids here. The kid had a reason to do it. He took his chance. I mean, you are correct. It is very
He took his
unsportsmanlike.
chance?
Yeah, I mean, it is a cheap shot. But when you're that size, man, what
Wait,
are
are
you
you
do
so
against that fucking giant?
Earth-centric that anything this kid does is something you're going to justify at this point?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, man, he took a chance. I'm not saying it was a smart chance, but he took a chance. I mean, dude,
why are we arguing? This isn't surprising. Mark
No.
shoots. He either
this is
shoots it,
standard ops
throws a
between
rock.
the three of us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is nothing new.
yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, man, the kid was like, fuck this thing. And fucking, look, man, fucking space dude comes down and starts giving you shit, yelling at you, like, get your friend out of the tub, he's going to drown. And you're like, fuck you, spaceman, don't judge me. Get back in your fucking ship and get out of here. And then you took a brick and tried to hit him with it.
That's an interesting
think about
story.
it.
Oh, so
I mean,
no, I love it
didn't
because
happen.
basically Mark established the classic protocol of stand your Earth rules. So
Yeah, that's
anytime anything foreign comes down and does fucking anything, like maybe attempts to use sign language or talk to you,
Say hi.
if you feel threatened in
dude,
any way,
dude,
stand
you got to give
your
it
Earth and fucking
you got to
huck
give
a
it.
rock.
You have to give it
Yeah.
a fucking stone cold stunner. Or in this kid's case, he couldn't stun him, so he fucking took a brick and just took it to the back of his head.
Well, he
It's a
didn't
cheap.
hook it.
It's a cheap
took
shot.
aim.
He wasn't
did
fighting
not-
a mono cyclops, but he fucking did what he had to do.
Right, but he did not
Let's
get
see-
it. He did not get it off, as it were.
But let's see where it goes, though.
It's
Let's see
Fernando
if this worked out.
reached down, brick in hand, takes aim. As if sensing danger, the Cyclops whirled around and a beam of concentrated yellow light shot from the triangular emblem on his chest, striking Fernando on the hand. The brick
No.
plummeted back to the soil, and all three boys found themselves in a state of paralysis. This is what happens when you
See
act
what you
super
did, Mark?
aggressive.
So what I
To
did,
an extraterrestrial.
I wasn't there
tried
in
a
his
special move.
You were
You
their
did.
coach. You let this happen.
Dude, this is his M. Bison move. When you think you got him, and then fucking bang, he catches you in the corner. With that
Now you got
stupid
three
dive
paralyzed
thing he
kids.
does.
What do you do now, big man?
Oh, Jesus Christ. Hey, whatever. You fucking aliens come and take you guys. I'm the only one fighting. Me and Dennis Quaid up in the hills fighting. That's right. I said Dennis Quaid.
I'm pretty sure Dennis Quaid has nothing
Yeah.
to do with that. You meant
No,
Randy,
shit,
right?
Randy. I'm sorry,
Yeah, you
Randy.
did.
But I think Randy Quaid, he's still alive, right? Yeah, isn't he like hiding in Canada or something currently? Because
know
like
what he
the government's
does.
gonna get him.
Yeah.
I think he is. He's like legit like hiding in Canada because he's like the U.S. government's trying to kill me. So it's me and fucking Randy Quaid.
Oh man,
Okay.
Yeah, fighting these fuckers off.
I didn't
Well,
know he
you
went
know,
to
send us
say.
letters.
Save your asses. Like, hey Rob, I'm
Yeah.
gonna save you, and you're like, I don't got my new phones up yet. Sorry, Mark, I can't. I'm like, fuck.
Oh my god.
Let's be
Dearest
clear as to
friends,
what happens next.
All right, what happens next? What
It's
happens
been months.
next?
We have
What
three frozen
happens now?
kids,
All right, fine.
frozen in a beam of yellow light with a ginormous orange skin Cyclops, and this
All
is
right.
what happens.
Okay.
At this point, the Cyclops spent the next few minutes talking to the frozen boys in his indigenous language. Although the boys couldn't understand a word, they all felt that the creature's stern tone sounded deadly serious. It's a lecture. It's a
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what they came
Exactly.
across? A fucking extraterrestrial vice principal who is going to give you a stern talking to. He's going to talk a little bit about your permanent record. He's not going to actually be able to do anything because that's what the protocols are. But
Yeah.
boy, is he going to. And if he had a mustache, it couldn't be any more perfect. He is the fucking VP of the cosmos. At the end of his lecture, the being pointed up at the moon and began to walk back toward the hovering craft and his fellow crew members. I love it. To the fucking moon. This is what happens.
Yeah.
That's detention for little pricks on Earth. The moon. Enjoy that, Jose
One
Ronaldo
more.
and Fernando.
One more goddamn time I'm sending you fuckers to the alleged moon. Yeah, it's alleged. It might
The
not even
alleged
exist.
fucking moon.
And fuck you, your Earth is flat. Ha ha, later, assholes. Like, does that guy just call us an asshole?
Wow.
You
Is the
couldn't
world
tell.
flat?
You can't speak.
Yeah. Exactly. All right, so he's giving him a lecture, whatever.
Little Jose, the young man who was just bound and determined to do the chores that were assigned to him, evidently not sharing Fernando's fight or flight response to this unusual entity, shouted after the creature, asking if he would ever come back. The being nodded his head in the affirmative, reached down and plucked a plant from the ground, then waved his head to the orb above. The UFO once again fired twin rays at the ground, and the Cyclops slowly ascended back up into the ostensible vehicle. As the boys stared, the strange craft flew eastward and disappeared out of sight. The moment the UFO was gone, a wave of terror began to grip the boys. Jose ran into the Galberto's home and hid under the bed. Legit.
Okay.
Panicking, Fernando and Ronaldo raced inside and told their mother, Maria Jose, what had happened. Maria sent a neighbor girl to go fetch her husband, Alcides, from the local bar, which is where Dad should be at that time of night during that era. When he returned home to check the backyard, the skeptical father was surprised to find large boot tracks around the water barrel, which, by the way, is probably not the most hygienic replacement for a sink, but you do what you do. This is how you live in Belo Horizonte. I'm not here to judge. What I am here to say is they found fucking tracks, so that's interesting. Not that I think that Jose and Ronaldo and Fernando were fucking lying, but it's interesting that although Dad was skeptical, he did find boot tracks around the fucking water barrel.
Yeah, we got some evidence.
Scant though it may be.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's just wrap this up and then we'll fucking talk shit about it. Jose and his friends reportedly never saw the Cyclops. I don't even know. I don't know how to plural Cyclops. The Cyclopses again. We're just going to go with this. The case was investigated by the Brazilian UFO group Cicogani, which is Ciconi. Oh, God, you would think I would have fucking figured out what that stood for. I didn't. That was an act of laziness on my part. We'll live with that. And eventually, word of the event spread throughout the world. But as to the agenda of these ruddy, one-eyed beings in contacting these three boys and what, if anything, they have to do with the moon, remains as elusive today as it did over half a century ago. And that is the madly famous, well-known, much celebrated, at least within ufological circles, Bella Horizonte case. Not significant so much in terms of what transpired, but in that that this thing was clearly not aggressive, even though it dealt with aggressive humans. And it had no reason to know necessarily that these were harmless kids. It could have thought these were like fully formed, super dangerous adults using top weapons tech against it. But apparently the Belo Horizonte aliens knew well enough to know these are just punk kids just trying their best, trying to wash a coffee filter, do their fucking thing. I'm not going to annihilate you guys. You know what I am going to do? I'm going to pick up this plant. I'm going to ride my fucking light escalator back to my fucking super sphere, my longitudinal sphere, if I may again, and fucking and go back into the fucking cosmos. But it really is incredible. But I think one of the reasons this has become so famous is because just how unique these extraterrestrials or interdimensionals or whatever the fuck they were appeared to be.
Yeah, they're between their suits and their unorthodox fucking ways, because they're obviously they don't look like standard grays. They have ruddy skin and a weird eye and a fucking helmet and the ones got a fucking one has a sweet ponytail with boobs, like so they definitely don't fit the standard ops.
But you got to remember, once upon a time there were no standard ops. That's the best part.
Yeah,
right.
Like
the suits are total sci-fi.
Whitley Strieber, the suits are complete like movie serial, like 1950s Forbidden Planet fucking sci-fi. 100%.
Yeah.
100. And Chris is right about that. Which also I think Jacques Vallée would probably say, and Carl Jung for that matter, that this is a sophisticated intelligence, siphoning off your pop culture to introduce ideas to you using a facade that is at once both familiar in terms of the uniform and unfamiliar in terms of the visage. And to that I say, well, maybe, but that becomes a really complex, convoluted way of looking at it.
That's a slippery slope.
It is a slippery slope, because then I know, I mean, as much as I respect the Keels and the Valleys and the Youngs and on, it gets really difficult when you start thinking of these things as reflections of human perceptions, because then you're like, well, fuck, can anything just be objectively what it is? Can they not just have an erector set sphere that's coming down with light beam escalator handles and a dude that just wants to grab a plant, talk to some kids, lecture you when you're about to throw a rock at an adult and you shouldn't do that because that's not fucking cool or respectful, and then to the moon and then out?
Yeah.
I mean, why can't it just be that?
Maybe this is some weird, like weird pent up, they have a problem with their fucking school administrator, and they just psychically project it, all this fucking anger and shit, and then it comes down and they're like, "Fuck you," and throw the rock at it.
Oh, so that's Mr. Ramirez, and
yeah,
that's the lecture from the school board,
yeah.
and it really was never. Is it an ultra terrestrial manifesting itself as your worst fear? School bureaucracy.
Dude, fucking that PTA's a bitch, dude. Fucking, it sucks, man.
Oh, PTA,
all those administrators
PTSD.
And shit. Yeah, so I mean, I guess we could start off with all right, is this something that these kids could have obviously faked? To be like, oh, we saw a fucking alien or whatever. The description does sound extremely sci-fi and very Buck Rogers, fucking Flash Gordon-esque.
Well,
it's kind of
really.
on the nose a little bit.
The suit does. No serials. And not a lot of special effects in terms of cinema at that point had the advanced techniques to make, one-eyed, no-nosed orange things. I mean, it wasn't a common.
No, but I mean, I'm saying 63 overall pop culture. I'm sure you can find something similar, not necessarily on TV, but
you're
maybe
right.
Oh yeah, you
printed magazines.
Serials.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Which is more likely that something that they would get a hold of. So they would have a point of reference to kind of, make this tale up. The only thing with that though is that the father did find these boot tracks. So if these things are these giant cyclopses, I'm assuming these boot tracks have got to be pretty fucking big.
And
we're talking
fucking
Shaquille O'Neal size shit here. These things are pretty fucking monstrous.
I would think so. If they're over 7 feet tall, it would make sense.
Right.
And they had to have been large enough to be remarkable, literally in the definition of the word remarkable, in that they remarked about it. But to digress just for 1 second, if you're living in a culture, I don't know, how, civilized is not the right word, but how attached to pop culture the area of Bella Horizonte was. I mean, if your sink is literally a rainwater barrel in your backyard, you might not actually have the disposable income like your average American kid of the same era to get the comic books that Marvel was putting out at the time and anything that was post-EC that talked about aliens and monsters. So they might not have had the same pop culture frames of reference that maybe American kids or other kids might have. They might have been working from a more limited point of view. So I'm not so quick to just assume that this is something they would have just ran down to their local newsstand. I mean, they might have been living hand to mouth. I mean, they're scrubbing things in rainwater. There's no reason to assume that the disposable income allows for comic books or pulp magazines. So they really might not have been exposed to anything this esoteric, and that might lend some veracity to, I guess, the objective reality of this encounter.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if any of that is true, yeah, sure.
It's a lot of ifs, definitely.
Yeah, all right. So we could be dealing with a hoax, or we might not be. That's kind of typically, I think, where we start. So yeah, totally. I mean,
of course.
There is. It's because it does kind of seem like something that kids would make up. It does kind of seem a little like made up
you and your whimsy of a child, always.
I'm gonna get there, Robert. Don't worry. I'm gonna get past all of this and get to the fun part.
Oh,
with
here
the fucking
comes the
interdimensional interlopers, fucking coming from the
fucking
alleged
veil.
moon to fucking give the
the
fucking
alleged
veil. The alleged moon. So, or maybe these guys and gal just happen to pop into this reality, like, oh, hey, what's going on down there? And they fucking, came down to check it out. And then things got a little sideways because the kid got a little froggish and was like, I'm going to fucking jump on this motherfucker. And then, he was like, hey, knock it off. That's not cool. And fucking to the moon. And then they kind of booted off. They didn't really do much. They just kind of popped in, tried to talk to him. Listen, maybe they were scolding them for the kid washing the fucking coffee filter out in a container he could have surely fucking drowned in. You've seen the, if you get like a bucket of paint, it has the thing on the side with the little baby crawling into the bucket with a big slash. Don't let babies crawl in the bucket. They'll drown. Like, maybe that's what this guy was like, shit, look at these fucking little kids. The fuck, man?
Well, it seems
true.
Could be.
You might
Solved.
be right. No, it's not though, because it really seems like the lecture came as a direct result of you were trying to hook a rock at me.
Or the brick.
I'm freezing you, but I'm not hurting you. I'm not doing anything. It's not corporal punishment. It's just like, all right, you guys are frozen. I tried talking to you before. You didn't get it. I did the hand gestures. You didn't get it. I just said, fuck it. I'm going to leave. You decide to hook a rock at me. Well, now you're getting another lecture. You don't get hurt at all, but you get pointed to the moon. Now, the moon might have been a point like, and when you guys decide to stop being dicks for once in your life, join us on the moon, where we'll be waiting to live in intergalactic harmony with you. And that's probably the UFOs that Armstrong and the rest saw fucking on the edge of that crater. They were probably one-eyed Bella Horizonteans, even though I know they're not named after the place they visited once, but it's the best I can do right now. Yeah. And I mean, I get that. That's not how they're called, but whatever. The orange cyclopians, and they're like, hey, we were here to greet you. Aren't you one of the kids that almost threw a rock at me? Well, I'm a little disappointed. I thought he'd do better in life, but friends. And that's how it could have worked, but maybe didn't.
Friends.
I mean, we're assuming a lot.
It could have been friends.
We're a lot of assumptions.
Well, on Patreon, we can assume like motherfuckers. That is fine.
That's right. And depending on where the fucking, I said, depending on where the cyclopses are standing and where the moon was and physics and angles.
I love it already.
You don't even know if he was actually pointing at the moon. It might have just looked like he was pointing at the moon, depending on where the fucking moon was.
I mean, I couldn't help.
You don't know.
I couldn't help but to think like it was a honeymooners reference. Like he was going to bang zoom them. Literally. Like he was going to fucking, do some domestic abuse to the moon. But that's it's a little on the nose. And that's me going Joe Dante's Explorers, which is a little too meta for TV kids. And it's actually the part that ruined that movie, because it was an awesome movie until the third act. And they ended up being with like shittily realized aliens that loved I Love Lucy. Up until that moment, it was I won't say it's a great movie, but it was a pretty darn good movie. But I digress.
So, I mean, I guess we don't have really much more to track down here. We can't tell what their intentions were. They just kind of popped in.
Are the secondary, tertiary, and beyond cases with the tall orange cyclopses? I mean, I want more. I grant you that so many ostensibly extraterrestrial encounters from this era represented one and dones or two and dones at best. You don't get a lot of space penguins of Tuscumbia. You don't get a lot of bat beasts of Kent. You don't get a lot of these things. The Felix Stowe fire demons. It goes on. And that's part of what we love about them. But Garson invaders, they're one of the creepiest and best. But that having been said, once the Greys seemingly took over, and there is logic behind that. Some people say that the Greys took over as part of a treaty, and these different alien cultures were like, hey, we can prevent the Greys from doing what they do. They're going to fucking start harvesting your organs. They're going to want to build bases on your soil. They're going to make deals with your Eisenhowers, but then they're going to fuck you. So don't fucking listen to them. And then America was like, yeah, but are you going to give us your tech? And they were like, no, you're like juveniles. Why would we give you sweet weapons? And they're like, fuck you, we're going to make deals with the Greys. And apparently that turned up to fuck us, if indeed that's true, and I am skeptical about that. But once that fucking happened and Whitley Strieber published his book, all we get is fucking Greys, a nonstop Grey party. I hate it. I'm so sick of them. Even if they're real, even if they're 100% real, it is aesthetically shitty.
Yeah, it's not fun. I mean, I think these cases are a lot more aesthetically
50s,
pleasing and
60s, and
fun all
70s
around.
cases. I mean, granted, you could say it started with Betty and Barney Hill, even though they had irises and pupils back then, but they were still arguably grays.
Right.
But oh god, they're so goddamn boring. If nothing else, I
Well,
loathe them
and
because they're
terrifying.
boring and butt probing and terrifying and evasive
Yeah.
and kidnappy and all sorts of other horrible adjectives. Even though kidnappy probably isn't technically a word, but still, fuck them. If they're real. And I'm still iffy on that. But if they're real,
Yeah.
they're shitbags. But I think what I'm offended by most of all is that they fucking
Why are
aren't
they
cool.
shitbags?
I mean, they're shitbags for everything they do and how
Yeah,
they do it
right.
to people.
No,
but you're
listen,
boring.
listen.
You're bland
The
and
fucking-
beat. You're like the fucking
I get
cream
that.
of wheat. Like we have a world of waffles and fucking pancakes and French toast. You're the cream of wheat of aliens.
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Listen.
Chris. Please continue.
No, I understand. Well, I like cream of wheat, but that being said,
I do too. I do too.
it's why
But, not every
Grey's-
meal.
No, I understand. It's fucking Strieber's fault, 100%. But I do think Greys, if anything, I don't think they are aliens. My brain tells me they are future humans rather than aliens.
Makes sense. I mean, they're
Interesting.
basically
I
built
like
like
Just
us.
the way if
They
you
are
look
the
way human
trajectory
would
of what you
evolve,
exactly intellectual, lazier. Though you think they'd
you
be
get
fatter.
what's what I mean.
but
You get
still.
less. You're going to get less muscle mass.
Right.
I mean, it's just to me that I can see biologically that making more sense. I guess for
No,
some reason.
the time travel theory in terms of Greys makes a lot of sense to me. I absolutely get like that would be the interested party, and because their largest protocol seems to be by and large our genetics are fucked, so we need to take your genetics, and then they end up making these weird hybrids, like like they steal the sperm, they steal the eggs, they do whatever, and then you end up meeting a child that's half yours, that is like that wispy, shitty hair, that's half like gray, half human,
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, you're my, you're my baby, but they're taking you away, but you were my baby, but whatever. Men and women have both over and over again proclaimed, like, yes, what else would want to make hybrid babies with us to help their genetics if they are not our distant descendants that somehow have fucked up like the standard, genetics of our species, and they need to go back to something like more common core. Bad fucking phrase. They need to go back to something that's more standard and maybe slightly uncorrupted to like bolster it up. And so I agree with you in that sense, Chris. If they are anything, it makes much more sense that they would be like just these dissolute time travelers trying their best to shore up the fucking program. But sadly, they're always associated with like mantises, sometimes fucking reptilians. They seem to sometimes be automatons in suits. So it becomes convoluted as shit. But I agree. If you're going to be bipedal, four-limbed, 2 eyes, one barely a nose, a little bit of a mouth, ear holes, and a head on top, it smacks of you were probably maybe us from the future, because so many of these other extraterrestrials, yes, there's tons of humanoids, including the Bella Horizonte. Not that we've lost completely the track we were on, but there's a lot of ones that are just like batshit crazy, and nothing like a humanoid.
Of course. I mean, I guess it could be multiverse us's too, I suppose.
That's possible.
Yeah, it could be some weird interdimensional. Ooh, is Chris talking about interdimensional shit now? Is that what happened?
Yeah, but I'm talking about it from like a physics standpoint, not from a bullshit standpoint.
Jesus Christ. All right, fair enough.
How do you feel about the Greys, Mark? You haven't been interjecting as much as I would have expected.
I've just been listening to your anti-Grey tirade, waiting for the conclusion of the fuck the Grey.
Oh, there is no conclusion. Anyone that's been into extraterrestrial phenomenon for as long as all of us have, has got to be either fully embracing what it is or sick to their balls of it. I happen to fall into that latter camp.
I think, like I said earlier, I prefer the non-gray aliens. I just think that there's a much wider variety of them. They like Varenish, something like that,
Yeah.
or like Cisco Grove.
The good stuff.
But that's the pop culture fucking nerd in me. The actual, like, if I could be considered at something a ufologist. I mean, obviously, the more common thing that everyone sees is a gray. But it's unfortunate that we don't really get reports like Bella Horizonte anymore because everything's just gray based. So
you
I don't know.
do.
I mean, if
They're much rarer, but you still do get esoteric extraterrestrial sightings, just not as commonplace.
Yeah, but the overall, there's been a shift. Clearly, we all know that there's
absolutely.
been a shift.
Well, yeah,
So,
in 2020, you can't even begin to make up a story that, like, I saw this thing and it looked like it had an ear on its eye and it had a knee on its face. You can't make, people are gonna be like, yeah, go suck a fuck, right? Like, it's gray or nothing. Like, you can't have an encounter like that and it's got to be gray.
Oh, but it's not necessarily. But you're right. If you're trying to make shit up, then you have to go standard ops. I know what you're saying, Chris.
It is.
But if somebody still had a unique encounter with something, I think there would still be people that would be receptive to it. If somebody, and there are, especially in South America again, in Puerto Rico and in Mexico, you definitely get encounters with things that are anomalous, not necessarily just your standard op grays. And that to me is still, it's fascinating. It's funny. Part of me wonders too, I'm not being objective when I say it. Objectively, I should be studying what the preponderance of so-called evidence is, which is that for whatever reasons, grays have become the nearly ubiquitous life form that wants to visit Earth, that wants to abduct humans, that wants to interact with humans in some way. And so part of me is very tiny part, obviously, impartial and like, all right, this is something I have to study. But then there is the storyteller in me. There is the person in me that, again, wants the glorious sci-fi grandeur. And I'm like, oh, I cannot fucking stand you. Stop already. Why can't we get fucking celery people again? I need fucking Veggie Mans and I need fucking dumb shit. I need fucking, crazy critters of Bald Mountain. I need dumb octopus fuck-alls to come around and start stealing people or doing whatever the fuck they're going to do because I need it. It's good for my heart.
No, I love it.
So where do we stand with Bella Horizonte?
I'm intrigued by Bella Horizonte. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I mean, it's like kind of any other sighting at the time that doesn't have anything really corroborating it except one person seeing maybe some footprints, but there's no like UFO sightings around at the time that I know of.
Right.
That we know of. That's part of the problem too, because who knows if somebody did that legwork back then.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's with any story that there isn't one. There could have been, they just didn't report it. Like I said, the suits and everything kind of fit what's kind of going on at the time. I don't know. I mean, it's like any other kind of story that's horribly boring and sad, but I mean, it could be true or it could not be true.
The one thing I thought was kind of interesting though was
no, it's a fair indictment.
You have the one pilot with the blonde ponytail and curves and breasts. So that's kind of interesting because you don't necessarily always get that in reports of
and you don't need her, quote unquote, her. We don't know for sure. You don't need her. It doesn't like if that was just a group of kids making something up, that doesn't enhance the veracity of their report. If they're trying to like think of ways to make it seem more legit, just adding something. I mean, human beings aren't either bald or long-haired if you're feminine. So the fact that one just happened to have that and happened to have curves that seem to be corresponding with, feminine attributes, to me, that actually smacks of a little bit of authenticity because it's like, why would you even bring that up? I mean, what's the point of, she doesn't interact. She doesn't wave to the boys. There's nothing
she's just
special.
Yeah.
It's just 3 dudes and a girl or whatever. And that's what it is. And so I find that kind of fascinating and its innocuousness and its insignificance.
Yeah. It's a really weird detail in the story. So, I mean, maybe that's something that they were just like, oh, let's say there was a fucking chick or if for some reason these life forms, there was a female that happens to have, humanoid-like features like that, because it's not really common, I don't think, in reports. But yeah, I think that's pretty. It's a pretty interesting, part of the case. I mean, obviously, this kid with his unsportsmanlike conduct with the brick. I mean, you got to do what you got to do.
And Fernando was legit until then. Like, he was protecting the smaller kids. He was keeping Jose from drowning. He wasn't calling out Ronaldo for being a lazy fuck hiding behind the house. He made sure the kids were behind him when the 7-foot tall, monstrous looking alien show. So up until that point, in fact, he was even legit after that, because I can almost understand what Mark is saying in that maybe he thought he didn't chuck the rock, so maybe he thought he just needed to heft the rock in case it turned around and became aggressive, because we don't know for sure he was going to throw it before he became sci-fi paralyzed. He might have just been being precautionary.
You're literally like, you're a bunch of little kids and these fucking giants come out of a fucking spaceship. Like, there's definite cause for alarm there. Just size comparison alone, it's not like a bunch of ruffians from down the street where you're like, all right, we're sized up evenly, we can fight each other. I mean, this thing could be some intergalactic fucking child killer for all these fucking kids now.
True.
Yeah.
So I mean, granted, it didn't do anything. It's
clearly a predator.
It's a predator versus the fucking kids. But so for him to act that way, I mean, it's not necessarily, I think, out of character. Like, you're scared, you react in a scared kind of fucking way, which is get the nearest dude, chuck rocks, dude. That's what we do as humans. We chuck rocks.
I mean, if one protocol has been established, but he didn't chuck. Unlike the telepathic football, unlike the fucking the stumps, so many cases he didn't hurl the rock, he hefted the rock, and that's where I think Fernando might have saved the human race. Because had he cracked the fucking glass dome around fucking the Cyclops' head, had that thing suffocated, had its fucking cohorts come down and laid waste to Bella Horizonte, we would have a very different human history right now. Fernando's restraint might be one of the most telling aspects of this encounter, and might have been the thing that saved the human race from a time immemorial. From that time to a time immemorial, I should say.
Yeah.
And there you have it. That is the Patreon Kryptonaut podcast, the amazing episode of Bella Horizonte. The episode
you could not wait to end. You jumped on the first thing that was said, and there it is. It's over.
There we go. Bella Horizonte. It is one of my favorite encounters, though.
We all love, because they're fucking awesome.
The pop culture aspect of it is so fucking cool. And everybody out there, we're going to post some art up, but you should definitely jump out there and check some of the art. It's just super cool. And it's such a cool such a one and done, pop in, pop out,
like all
get
the
a brick,
best are.
yell at some kids. Yeah, So it's,
but
it's
I do love the fucking, again, like I called it earlier, the vice principal element. Like, he's not being a dick, he's not being oppressive, but boy, is he being boring. He starts with talking, he's lecturing, he's like a guidance counselor more than a vice principal.
Yeah,
like,
100%.
God, stop.
Stop
telling me what
the worst of the faculty.
Did you pick your sequence?
What are you going to do? What do you want to do in your life?
I want a podcast. Nice.
Oh, God.
All right, there you have it.
Thank
you all so very much for joining us. As always, thank you for your contributions, your monthly contributions.
Patrons, you are the fucking best. Thank you so much.
You are the best.
You deserve better than what we can give. Bless your heart. But we still do our best.
We thank you for providing Robert with bourbons and various whiskeys. We feel as though
there's no sarcasm there at all.
No, not at all.
You know what? You were too sober tonight, Mark. I don't want to call you out usually, but I can hear the dry in your voice, and it's making me sad.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, unfortunately, I have to get up tomorrow at 5:00, go to work. So I don't want to get too super shit faced.
Bullshit right there.
That's sad.
And after the whole jerking off monkey thing, I figured give it, maybe knock it down a little bit, give myself a little stop and pause here. So
dude,
I
us
have
being
to get
sloppy
up.
is the key. I know we got a bad review.
Monkey.
I know it was tough. Some people don't like us being drunk and erudite, but damn it, that is us.
Yeah, just,
I mean, to be,
just saying.
Okay, guys, to be fair, that's one review from someone in Australia on the non-Patreon feed. So Patreon people generally enjoy what we do because you're giving us money.
God bless them.
I don't think we have to address this.
I wasn't talking
cool
about
people.
our patrons. They're the fucking saints of the world.
Listen. I'm just saying, if you've listened to like 50 pods and we haven't done what you want us to do, we're not going to do what you want us to do.
Maybe it's that 52. Maybe it's 52.
Maybe, but no, not going to happen.
No, definitely not. But regardless of anything happening over there, thank you all so very much for joining us. We appreciate it. You guys are
the best. Thank you.
You know what? Keep them. Those comments coming in the little Patreon feed right there. We like seeing all that stuff there.
And I would love to hear from anybody else that is sick to fucking death of Grays.
Yeah, post it up, man. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know your comments, your theories. Give us your theories on this, because this one's kind of wide open. There's a lot that could fucking be going on here. So let us know what you feel about it, what you think, and we'll be talking with you soon.
I am pretty sure that this is the larger school system of our solar system. Like maybe there's 3 solar systems and this dude is like the school supervisor for all of them. And he occasionally shows up on Earth and, there's no official meeting. He's just like, yeah, we got to talk to you kids. Your grades you aren't making the marks, but that's okay. You're Earth. You can't help it. It's just fucking
shitty
Earth.
That could be
shitty faculty.
Earth.
Shitty faculty. That's all it is. That's what it comes down to. Thank you.
All right.
Talking to you soon.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, friends.